Hi there, and welcome, Maryn, to the Birthing Summit with Bhakti Rose. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Now, I'd love to know a little bit about yourself. If you would like to share with our listeners and our audience a little bit about who you are and what you do, your work in the world would be fabulous.
Sure. I am a mother to 10 children, ages almost 23 down to 4. And I have been in the role of midwife throughout my life, and musician, and somatic educator. I'm currently living in Hawaii, where I spend most of my time in the ocean trying to surf, trying to learn that whole language, and still running Indie Birth, which is a global birth association I have had for many years, almost 15, and just living the life, doing the work that I'm called here to do.
Sounds amazing. I'm right there with you trying to surf.
Oh, yeah?
I'm
That's,
doing it with my children as well. It's very challenging. It brings a lot of stuff up.
oh my gosh, that's so cool. I don't think I've met anybody since I started that was also learning. So that's great.
Oh, good. Oh, and so tell us a little bit about Indie Birth, your business.
The Indie Birth Association, like I said, is kind of a global community.
Mhm.
Margot and I started this, like I said, close to 15 years ago. And we've done a lot of things, but over the years, we are focusing on training doulas through our Sacred Sisterhood doula training. And we've had the Indie Birth Midwifery School, which was pretty well known out in the world and is kind of on a hiatus right now. So, training doulas, training radical midwives, offering birth education and knowledge to women all over the world so that women can truly reclaim their power in the birth process.
Beautiful. So needed. And what's your vision? What's your wider vision for the for birth work in the birthing realm?
Hmm. Well, the ideal, like I said, is kind of returning the power to women. And that's simply said, but I think pretty complex in a lot of ways, just in the cultures we live in. So that's not just education, that's women, especially returning to their roots, their wisdom that is within them through, somatic work, through shamanic work, through whatever speaks to them, so that they can truly know themselves and process traumas and all of that great stuff. I think clearing the way, so to speak, emotionally and sometimes spiritually can really enhance the birth process and really, make us the mothers we've come here to be. I think that's the bigger picture of birth work, is to have really strong women in the world that, yes, have birth babies and then go on to birth all kinds of creative and amazing things.
I love that. And I know with my experience in birthing my children, especially my first, I really wanted to have that beautiful home birth that I dreamed of, but all the things came up. Sister-in-law that was a paramedic and seen all these horror stories about home births and really scared me and rattled me and wobbled me. And I ended up birthing in the hospital, which, wasn't ideal at the time, but
Yeah.
it was my birth and it was beautiful at the same time. So there's definitely, I hear so many stories about women exactly that. They have this inner knowing and this inner wisdom that they really want to be surrounded by their partners, their family, birthing in their own home, but just have this fear of, yeah, that just our conditioning and our culture and birthing in a hospital with a doctor or a midwife is much safer. Did you want to talk a little
Yeah.
bit to that?
We live in a culture of fear and we live in a very death focused culture, for better or for worse. So I
Mm.
think it's a reprogramming that we all can do, but especially when someone finds out they're pregnant, everything can be put on the table as an option. So it's not that there is a right way. I've preferred home birth. I've been a home birth midwife for a long time. But it's not really about that. It's about each woman choosing what's right for herself. And like I
Mm.
said, walking that road with this baby that she's pregnant with to become the new version of herself. I think that's another bigger picture of birth and motherhood is that, we're also rebirthing ourselves in this new vibration to match this soul that's coming in. I mean, that's how the world changes. So there's a lot to contend with, no question about it. And I don't think things like the internet actually feel all that helpful for this kind of work, right? People are used to Google searching a statistic or looking up a test. And I'm really always urging women to bring it back to their own bodies, bring it back to what they're feeling. And, there's lots of support and maybe even coaching that can be done around that for women that are feeling they need that. But those are the keys, I think, to success. Again, not that there's one way to birth, but that we're birthing from this place of authority within ourselves or sovereignty. I think that's the ideal, but there's a lot to, like I said, to contend with.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so what do you see, like how have you personally found resonance within your birth working, I guess, career and your community that you've built?
Well, it's been a lot of shifts and changes and personal transformation, honestly. I haven't remained the same. So when I entered the midwifery world, 20 years ago, and I was a student, I had a different vision in a lot of ways of what I actually ended up doing. So, for example, I was a licensed midwife in the state of Arizona for a couple of years. I worked really hard for that license. To me, that felt like legitimacy, right? Like, I'm a licensed midwife now, and people will find me. And my path was to learn the opposite of that. My path was to be shown that that wasn't true for me. And that for me to really be the midwife I came here to be, I needed to operate in a much more free manner. So I've shifted and changed. I gave my license back after a couple of years, and I never looked back to that model. To me, that medicalized midwifery model, it's a fine choice. I think everybody's entitled to choose that. But, to make licensing mandatory, I think is insane. Honestly, I think it goes against our rights as women and our autonomy. So, through my career as a midwife, I was really blessed and honored to serve women in several different states that didn't want that model. They didn't want to be held to the mainstream medical model of midwifery. They wanted to be in charge of their own care. They wanted to lead the way and be supported by someone with experience and wisdom. So I've been really blessed to basically have done midwifery in the way that I wanted to, that felt right to me. Even as a mother, these are the choices I would have made for myself. So it's been a great run, and I'm kind of on a break right now where I don't have to
Okay.
answer the phone and get up at night, and that's really nice too.
Oh, that's nice. And so you're on your summer break, are you? Bit of a having a bit of a break, or just in?
No, I'm more in a I've been kind of on an extended break for a couple of years now, for the reason that I think midwifery is in an interesting place, especially here in the US. And, that affects me as a midwife. And I'm figuring out how I want to do it again. So, like I said, I haven't done it the same way the whole time I've been in this role. It always is shifting and changing for me based on my own learning and my own growth. And so I'm at another crossroads where it's like, okay, I don't want to do it that way anymore. What's next?
Yeah, yeah. So, what sort of advice? So, for women wanting to step out of the constraints of the system, particularly into being a doula, supporting home birth, and not being in those restraints, like what would your advice be?
For women that want to be birth workers, you mean?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I have over 300 free podcasts. My podcast is called Taking Back Birth. So there's a lot of like free education and wisdom there. And we have our own programs at Indie Birth. But I think, you know, the take home there and something that is definitely present in all of the work that we do is again encouraging this inner work. So, no matter what you want to do, you want to be a doula, you want to be a midwife, I think there's a lot of soul searching that can go on that is really beneficial to ultimately being in that role, right? So, rather than I just want to attend births, we sometimes need to look within ourselves and say, why? You know,
Yeah.
what do I have to offer these women? Where am I coming from? Like, have I had traumatic births? Am I trying to save everybody? So, there are
Mm,
some really great threads to explore so that when we do get into birth work, we can do it with integrity and we can serve the women we're meant to serve because I don't think any of us are put out there to serve everybody. That's just not the way this works. It's very intimate, it's very personal to be in this role of doula or midwife. But these birth workers, you know, out there just to do whatever, I don't think ultimately serves a lot of the pregnant women out there. So be you, figure out who you are, and then the women that you are meant to serve will come your way, and it'll probably be the perfect match. And you'll be fulfilled as the birth worker, and the women you serve will have had probably a really great experience.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's definitely because I know from my experience birthing, I only have two boys and I've birthed both. And my first birth was very medicalized, was very, much in a big public hospital here. My second birth was in a smaller birthing center with a midwife that I had from the beginning, right? Like that came to my bedroom when I was started my contractions, and she's sitting there and she was a yoga teacher and quite a spiritual woman as well as being a midwife in a birthing center. And it was incredible the different experience. I mean, it was my second birth as well, but the different experience that I had because I built such a beautiful relationship with this woman who was there truly to support me and what I wanted to do. And to the point where, she was there in my bedroom with me, rubbing my back when I had my first contractions. Like, I wasn't expecting that from a hospital. It's still the public health system here in Australia in a
Right.
birthing center. But the difference, like my second baby, I literally did just breathed him out within, a couple of contractions, and he was breathed out because of the language that was verbal and non-verbal that I experienced with her, and the relationship that she'd built with myself, with my baby, and my husband and other child as well. Like it was a
Yeah.
really beautiful team effort, and it was like she was just, floating there, was there but wasn't there, and was in sync. And I just often, think back to that experience, and that's the difference between, I think, someone being there to just be a midwife or just to be at births, as opposed to somebody actually really being there, which is what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's so much more than, you know, a professional caregiver or whatever people want to say. But it just depends on the woman. You know, again, I think some women want to be told what to do or how to do it. And, you know, it's not that I've never offered that to women that I've worked with. I think when you have a close relationship that you've worked hard for, you also know that woman. So it's not about her just, you know, you sitting in the other room during a birth necessarily as the midwife. It might mean you're really hands on. Maybe she needs a lot of emotional support. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just what does this woman want? What does this woman need? And do we have the trust in this relationship for her to be able to ask for that?
I think that's the key, isn't it? It's the trust and the intuition, like using your intuition and then having the mother, and having that beautiful trust. And talking about mothers who want to, go down this path of natural childbirth and birthing at home or birthing, in a river or somewhere else really
Right.
magical and amazing that I've seen women doing, but are a little bit scared. Like, what would your advice be to them? Like, how would you work through, them taking that sort of first step into being more empowered in the actual birth process?
Well, it's a road, and it's a road that one can start to walk before they're pregnant, really. But once you are pregnant, I think my best advice is usually just to go slowly and to not rush into other people's agendas, even testing options. For normal, healthy women, they're going to grow a baby without thinking about it and without, doing anything other than taking care of themselves. So there isn't a rush to do most things that women are told to do in pregnancy. And the care that a woman gives to herself really is the most important. I would never say that, the care I've given as a midwife is somehow more important than what this woman is doing every day for herself, right? Feeding herself the best food she can, connecting with her baby, making time to feel what's in her body. And that's maybe not always a pleasant thing. So that's where some of this more emotional work comes in. But just to take it step by step. And I think if someone can follow that, they also leave space in their life for the right options to appear. So again, you don't rush into choosing a care provider. Maybe you meet with a bunch of them. Maybe you meet with a few midwives, a few doctors. Maybe you go visit a birth center. Maybe so just take your time and recognize that everybody's going to have their opinion, even your close family, and most definitely your close family. And it's a time as you step into motherhood to embrace that and all the uncomfortable things that may come with that as you step into the role of mother. That's part of it. So I would love if it felt easier for a lot of women, but I think it doesn't often.
Mm.
It can feel really challenging and like they're not doing it right, and people think they should do this and get the ultrasound and go here. And it's all about listening to yourself. So, however, you can do that, go out into the forest, for 10 minutes
Yeah.
every day, or go sit near the ocean, or whatever. Just give yourself space and give yourself time to feel what's there and to allow whatever is needed to come in, because it's the rushing ahead. And I think this like intellectual pregnancy, and again, I mean, we all can blame technology and Google, but I think, women are contributing in their own ways as well. Pregnancy is not an intellectual process, and it's everybody's choice how they make a decision. So maybe research or numbers plays into that for one woman or whatever, this group of women. But I think ultimately, even that, the decision making part comes from a deeper place, ideally. It doesn't come from the mind.
Yeah.
Um,
You
and
can
and
absolutely.
we've been doing this for forever. Women have known how to birth and have babies.
Yeah, and it's really is tapping in, getting out of the head and into the body and just feeling feeling what you need, isn't it? And I know, there's so many, like you say, books, and now we've got Chat GPT and we've got Google and we've got, sometimes, like the most well-meaning relatives and whatnot. Um, but yeah, just I think you're right. So it's feeling into that information overload that's coming in, and it's really setting you up for motherhood, because then as soon as the baby's born, we're then given all this advice to do this, do that, all the different things. And it gets really overwhelming. And I really think this idea of having a cocoon and that fourth trimester kind of away from all the noise,
Yeah.
if that's distracting you, and getting you out of your body, to really just tune in with your baby, and your own little family network, to really find, yeah, that beautiful strength and balance and that sort of empowerment in those early years of motherhood.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I believe that no matter how many babies we've had with the birth that just happened, we are new. I've
Mm,
felt like a new person 10 times. So that's part of that cocoon, I think, is not just time with the baby. Yes, super important. And, we are linked in a million ways, but that woman has the space to kind of figure out what happened. I always say it's kind of like we shatter and we have to pick up the pieces. and we might put them back together differently. So I think preparing women for that in a powerful way um, can be really helpful too. That it's normal to kind of not know who you are, or you know to maybe have new interests or things that you did before that don't interest you. Like, it really is a rebirth, and that can be scary.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, the people around us, there's certain relationships and friendships that sometimes come into this new realm with you and sometimes they don't. And it is, yeah, I think you're right. It's a whole, yeah, it can be a whole new beautiful world. Um, so for women wanting, so you said that you're on a break, but are you about like how? So you've got your free podcast for women to wanting to connect with you and fathers, potentially new fathers watching this, wanting to connect with you and sort of get get into the rabbit hole of your work. Where will they find you?
Oh, wow. Well, I have another podcast that I do with my husband called Raising 10 Kids.
Oh,
And
amazing!
that's, yeah, yeah, it's I think super popular in, the niche that we're in, which is large families, but I know that even people without children listen to it. So you can check out Raising 10 Kids. We also have a community called Sovereign Family that kind of has stemmed from our listeners. I have a year-long circle for women that's virtual called the Magical Mama Circle, and we are enrolling now during this summer. So we enroll once a year, and that's a place to, be around other mothers and go deeper into a lot of this self-work and embodiment, ritual, ceremony, that kind of thing. And geez, what else? Sacred Sisterhood Doula Program, that's through indiebirth.org. And
Yeah,
that's probably it, although there's a million other things. We have a book, Indie Birth. Margot and I wrote a book that's on Amazon. You could check it out. Just search Indie Birth. There's probably a million more
amazing.
things. Yeah.
Million more things. So it sounds good. The Magical Mama Circle sounds so interesting. It sounds like such a beautiful offering. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Mm. Oh, yeah. Well, we're going into our third year, so it's pretty solid. We've had a lot of those women in this circle from the beginning, and we're open to new members right now. So we meet twice a month on Zoom. We have women from all over the world, and it's a pretty intimate group. So, like I said, we might focus a month on some kind of topic like abundance or, whatever, and just kind of see what comes up. We do our, exercises, our embodiment stuff. There's lots of great conversation. And we do ritual and ceremony throughout the year. So for the wheel of the year, summer solstice, winter solstice, that kind of thing. But it's just a very consistent group. And most of them are mothers, although we have some very well loved women in the group that aren't mothers that maybe will be someday. Because the conversation and the topics really just kind of trend towards, something bigger in a sense than motherhood. Not that motherhood isn't great, but just our role as women and making a difference in the world. So it's a very powerful group of women, and magicalmama.org is where you can find out more.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for being here for the
Yeah.
Reclaiming Health Summit for Katie Rose. And we are, yeah, just so grateful that you will be able to spend some time with us today. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. It was great being here.
Thank you so much. I've just stopped.